Cue superhero landing. I gotta tell you, I'm glad I take krill oil and glucosamine because those superhero landings are tough. Thanks everybody for coming back to the KEV Talks podcast, episode 2. Got sleep? Well, if you're joining me today, the plan for this episode is to put you to sleep, or at least help you to get to sleep, stay asleep, get back to sleep, because sleep is important. It's important to heal our minds and our bodies. Some would say our souls. So let's talk about that. So first, how much sleep do we need? There's probably a range that we've all heard of. Let's use the CDC. They say if you're 13 to 18 years old, you need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. Between 18 and 60 years old, 7 or more hours of sleep. And then older than 60, it fluctuates between 7 to 9 or 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So that's the ideal hours of sleep that we need to help our bodies be healthy, our minds get some rest. And it really is critical, right? Because our mind repairs like our body does. And that's a big deal. So what I'm going to talk about today is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And this is a way to improve your sleep, to address insomnia without drugs. In fact, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia or CBT-I has been shown to be more effective than benzodiazepines like Valium or Xanax and non-benzodiazepines like Ambien or Trazodone, which is also given for sleep. And it's more durable because you're changing the way you think about things, you're changing your actions, you're changing the environment around you, and we'll get into this, of course. And my reference, I mentioned the CDC, but I'm going to talk about an article the Sleep Foundation used, and I referenced when I was having some insomnia the past few months, and really made a big difference in getting some good sleep and changing my mind around sleep, right? Have you ever not slept well and you're just down about it all day, and then it's time to go to bed and you're like, man, I hope I sleep tonight, and you overthink it and you can get in a cycle and maybe you don't sleep as good that night either. So CBT-I is what that's all about, is fixing it. So it is really looking at the connection between your thoughts, your actions, and your behaviors, how we sleep. You can do this with a therapist or with someone, a psychiatrist trained in CBT-I. Probably the ideal method, between 6 to 8 sessions. And again, I'll share this link to the Sleep Foundation article. And there's a great YouTube video too. I'll share the link to that goes through this whole PowerPoint presentation that covers the same stuff we will. But, if you want to see it from a pro, from a sleep expert, that's cool. I'll link to that in the show notes. But it says between 6 to 8 sessions, or with your primary care physician, maybe 2. I don't know what the disparity is there. I think it just depends on how well you adapt. I know I didn't have any sessions in particular, other than talking about maybe supplements, or even some benzodiazepine. And I say non because benzodiazepines, if you've ever been on them or if you know about them, I don't think I've ever been on them before, other than maybe before surgery to kind of chill you out, that shot they give you. But they're very addictive. You may sleep, but your sleep cycle is not great, still kind of in the background, but they're very addictive, right? Because it works, or they feel good, or all these different things. So it's bad for you. You can kind of get addicted to non-benzodiazepines too. But at any rate, so the CBT-I is what we want to do. We want to change what we do. And so the main components it's a multi-component approach, right? And it's looking at our cognitive interventions, our behavioral interventions, go figure CBT, right? And our psychoeducational interventions. And so really the cognitive piece of that is going to look at the inaccurate or unhelpful thoughts that we're having about sleep. Like, I'm anxious about sleep. Some people have sleep anxiety. I had that after I had a panic attack, right? I was nervous to go to bed because it happened at night. I sprung up. I didn't feel good. I was breathing hard. So going to sleep was a challenge for me because I was afraid to go to sleep. And a lot of people have that. I see it on the Reddit boards with anxiety and other places. And so that alone can be an issue. So addressing that helps with CBT-I, or unhelpful thoughts, again, that I didn't get enough sleep, so I'm not going to sleep again tomorrow. So I'm going to think real hard about sleep so that I'm not going to sleep as well. And you get in this cycle where eventually you have to start accepting that, yes, I'm tired. Yes, I didn't sleep good. Tonight I'm going to have good sleep hygiene, and we'll go over that. And I'm just going to accept what I accept. I'm going to get through the day. And it's amazing. And again, this is a perspective that particularly the past few months after I read Man's Search for Meaning, and I'll mention that probably a lot on this podcast and in posts that I've done, because it's a life-changing book. It was written by Viktor Frankl. It was from his standpoint. of being in Nazi concentration camps, like 3 or 4 different camps. His family was killed. Of course, millions of Jews were killed and other folks were killed in the concentration camps. And the big takeaway, of course, is, if you have your why, you can figure out how. So if your why is that you're going to keep going, you're going to, work through this insomnia, you have a family, you have a baby, you have a job, you have a sport, whatever it is, you can figure out how to do it. And we can do amazing things exhausted. I mean, examples from that book, Man's Search for Meaning, is little to no sleep, little to no clothes, in freezing cold weather where your shoes are all busted up. There's, let's say a number might be off, 100 people in a space where normally there would be 25. And if you've seen any of the pictures from there, so just, sleeping on those racks, no pads, no blankets. So if you're in a decent place with heat, with air conditioning, with a bed, you're already better off, right, than a lot of other folks. And if you didn't have a good night's sleep, it is awful. It feels horrible, but it could be worse, right? So keep that mantra. It could be worse. Keep pushing through, be tired, and let's use some of these CBT-I skills and get you all sleeping better like it helped me sleep better. It really made a big difference. So cognitively, we need to change our thoughts, our what we think about sleep, and what, those unhelpful thoughts that we're not going to sleep and, this impact and it doesn't hurt me. We can go pretty long without sleep. The other big thing, obviously, is behavioral. So that's what we'll dive into: relaxation training, stimulus control, sleep restriction, which I'll go into. They help promote relaxation, and eventually it gets your body to the point where it's like, all right, I have to go to sleep. Your body and your mind, right? Because it's a partnership there. And then the psychoeducational interventions that they mentioned, that's the word they use on the Sleep Foundation site. And again, I'll link to that. Is really talking about that connection between your thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and sleep. And a lot of that is like the cognitive behavioral therapy plus the insomnia focus. But when you do CBT, or if you've done it, that's a big thing, that your thoughts aren't, necessarily reality. These feelings that you have aren't necessarily reality. And so it's kind of how to help manage that. And they have some really good tools. Like one is cognitive restructuring, right? You don't want to reinforce those dysfunctional thoughts that you have about sleep, that you can't sleep, that it's hard to sleep. Negative thoughts breed like other negative thoughts. There's another good saying, I can't remember for it, right? Positive thoughts or accepting thoughts help you start to not, stew on that kind of thing, and you restructure it and you help address the anxiety. And you're going to be tired during the day, but you can't dwell on it constantly. One of the actions that we'll get into, kind of less on the cognitive, and let's get to the actionable pieces, right? We're about 8 minutes in almost, is stimulus control. So this is huge and a problem today, right? Because we have access to so much, any kind of movie, TV show, music, right? So just the short of it is, if you watch an action movie, a gory horror movie, something that keeps your mind racing, or you keep reading work emails or looking at your phone, you are stimulating your brain. You're not sending it into relaxation mode. So the stimulus control is that you need to not watch those things, right? For some folks, say you have PTSD or anxiety about a certain thing, but you're watching a movie about it, or you're depressed and you're watching sad or gory, scary movies, that's not going to help your mindset anyway, let alone when you want to go to sleep. The other thing is, for stimulus control, is that in your bedroom, and there's some great videos, again, I'll link to these for Therapy in a Nutshell, a whole bunch, which is great. I found so many great resources over the past few months out there, is you only use your bedroom for 2 things: sleep and sex. That's it. Maybe reading a book if you have a space, but the key is your bed, right? You don't associate your bed with doing work emails, with listening to, heavy metal, to watching scary movies. And I did that. My wife and I liked, watching TV in bed and hanging out in bed. Now I'll have the TV on in my bedroom sometimes when I'm folding laundry or something, but don't associate your bed, or you have to break that association with your bed. So 2 things: you sleep in the bed, you have sex in the bed, that's it. One of the videos I saw was maybe reading, but even that, like, I have a chair in my room, I have a decent sized bedroom, which is good, and I'll read in that, or I'll read in my living room. But that's something that's great to do. And again, I do my best not to be on my phone an hour before I go to bed, and not to really watch TV an hour or 2. I've gotten a little worse at that lately. Just some good shows that I've wanted to watch. But again, the blue light on your eyes and just the stimulation of having a screen makes a big difference. So at least an hour. Let's go with an hour for now, right? So an hour before bed, no phone. And phones, I use an iPhone. They have a sleep mode too. So it turns the screen dark on the whole phone and on applications that have a night mode, which is great. So if you have to look at your phone, you're also not getting hit up with bright light. But you can also put it in sleep focus so you don't get the alarms and any alerts that you would normally get during the day. So again, your stimulus control is working really good. But the big thing here is if you're watching things that stimulate your brain, listening to things that do that long before, or even exercising like an hour before bed, that gets you going, right? That's why I work out in the morning. You could work out maybe at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Some folks work out at 4 or 5, but if you work out at like 8 o'clock and you go to bed at 9 or 10, that might not be great. But so that's where we look at stimulus control. Sleep restriction and compression. And this was one that was really hard for me. It's hard for most people. So if you have insomnia or just having trouble sleeping and you're going to try this sleep restriction, maybe check in with your doctor if you have medical conditions. So here's the example just straight from Sleep Foundation's website. They say it better than me. So, quote, for example, if a person is trying to sleep 8 hours a night but only getting 5 hours, they start by adjusting their bedtime to spend 5 hours and 30 minutes in bed. Once a person spends the majority of their time in bed sleeping, they can begin gradually increasing their time in bed. End quote. So you're going to go from being in bed for 8 hours to being in bed for 5 hours and 30 minutes. The difference is you're going to get up at the same time. So a lot of the videos, reading I've done, get up at the same time. So still set your alarm for whatever time you normally get up, but you're going to go to bed way later, right? So 2.5 hours later. It's tough. You're going to be tired, but by the time you get to bed, you're going to sleep, and your mind and your body are going to want to sleep. It's not going to be perfect. You might be exhausted a few days, but your body and your mind are going to be like, okay, we have to go to sleep now, and it's going to work. It's going to take a little bit of time. Again, it could take a few days. It could take a week. But again, check in with your doctor if you need to, or try it on a weekend. It works really well. So I'll give you my example. Doing this sleep restriction plus stimulus control really was the key for me. Plus, I did take some supplements. I took a thing called trazodone, which the docs gave me. They give it to a lot of folks. It's primarily for depression, but they give it off-label, which is why I was taking it for sleep. I didn't like the way it made me feel, so I tried that. So my kind of winning combo now is a couple hours before bed, I'll take melatonin, either Ollie Sleep or Ollie Sleep with Immunity, and get that in the system. I also take magnesium glycinate. There's whole podcasts and lists, and maybe I'll do a supplement episode, but I'll link to actually Andrew Huberman's kind of sleep stack kind of thing. But to me, those are the two things that work really good. They're more natural. I know we don't need melatonin all the time. There's a whole bunch of things, but that works for me. So 2 hours before bed, right? Well before bed. Limit what I'm watching, or turn the TV off. And then an hour before bed, phone away, not looking at that, and then read a book, right? And usually for me, that starts at 8. So my 2 hours starts at 8. My goal is go to bed at 10, get up at 6. So what I started doing was start this process at 9 or 10, probably 9, and then go to bed later at 11 or 11 something, because I still wanted to get up at either 5 something or 6. And yeah, I was tired. Nights I didn't sleep all through the night, but gradually I started being able to sleep more and more. I'd sleep for like 5-6 hour chunks before I would wake up, either have to go to the bathroom or just, wake up, have to put myself back to sleep, or walk around because I couldn't sleep. And I would walk around, and I didn't mention this in the stimulus control rather, is so not only during the day when you're just doing stuff, do you not want to use your bed for things other than sleep or sex. Even if you sleep during the day, it's short naps, like usually before 3 o'clock, no longer than like 30 minutes. But also at night, if you lay in bed for longer than like 10 or 15 minutes, you need to get up and walk around or go read a book. Don't turn super bright lights on. Just kind of go somewhere where you can chill out, focus your mind, because you're not sleeping. And again, if you lay there, your mind's going to associate restlessness with not sleeping, and it's going to keep that cycle going. So during the day, don't use your bed. And then at night, if you get up and walk around. Don't look at the clocks. That makes it worse too. Then you're like, oh, I only have 3 hours or 4 hours or an hour. Just kind of walk around and do your thing and read a book or do a task that's not too stimulating. And then when you're tired, go back to sleep. And again, when you're restricting your sleep and this happens, it's very hard to do. You're going to have days you're tired. So just be smart. If you have to drive on a trip the next day, don't do the sleep restriction. It could be worse than your insomnia. Who knows? But do this. And when you keep doing it, it will help. There's trackers for this, apps for this too, that help calculate what time you should go to bed, which I used. They actually have a great one from the VA for veterans in particular, because for PTSD, sleep is a problem. Insomnia is a big problem. A lot of times when we go to sleep, we think of stuff we don't want to, or first responders, or really anybody that's had a traumatic event, right? And then relaxation training is kind of the next tool that we talked about, or that I mentioned, or if I didn't mention it, I'm mentioning it now. That's part of the CBT-I. And there's breathing exercise. There's so many different, ways to do breathing exercise. There's box breathing, where you like breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4. That's really relaxing. And other kind of numbered breathing systems that equal seconds that you hold or breathe. There's progressive muscle relaxation, and that's a good one. So think about, flexing your toes real hard and let that go, then your calves, then up your legs, basically each of the big muscles up to your head, and then you relax them. That's a big help in relaxing. That's not really one of my favorites. The box breathing is good. And there's some other things on the website I'm just not as familiar with, like autogenic training, where you focus on different parts of the body, biofeedback, where you look at like brainwaves, heart rate, breathing, hypnosis, which I have never done, meditation I do very regularly, and kind of mindfulness. So each day I'll do, or most days, at least 10 minutes where it's just me in meditation, and it's guided. And I use Headspace. I've mentioned that before. Headspace is awesome. It's the best app that I've used. Again, no plug there, no kickbacks from them, but just keeping it real. That's one that I use. So you can set do I want to do 5, 10, 15 minutes, 30 minutes? You can really go a long time. I've found 10 minutes is pretty good. It helps you get your brain to be able to calm itself down. So if you're anxious at night or you can't sleep, to be able to kind of take those breaths, to do that box breathing, to focus on something else. There's also great on Spotify or other online streaming things like night or sleep hypnosis or sleep meditations. You just have to try some out, what works for you, what doesn't. But that's the other kind of tools that we can use to help us go to sleep as far as relaxation that work really good. One that I've used a lot too was white noise. There was it's interesting when you get anxious at night. Before I had a panic attack, I wanted dead silent, pitch black, and then I was really nervous, and I actually wanted a little bit of light and some noise. I think it helped me feel a little safer, and then as I gradually kind of was able to reprogram and recalibrate and just kind of come down off that anxiety, now I'm kind of back to I want it really dark. But if it's going to be loud, maybe around you or something like that, there's white noise. There's white noise in that Headspace app. There's a great one that's like a fan noise. So if you just have that going in the background, it can also help drown out other noise. Like if you live in the city or somewhere it's loud, white noise is a great thing. There's also white noise machines and all these other. You just got to figure out what environment do I like. Once you've already done the stimulus control, once you're doing your sleep restriction, you're relaxed, then you're kind of fine tuning your sleep environment. And it really does make a big difference. And sleep diary is one of the last things they mention here as far as kind of homework. And so you program, and this is one thing I do each morning is like a to-do list. That's kind of like the Savers program I've mentioned here. That's part of the Miracle Morning, Hal Elrod's deal, which is awesome, which is where you're each morning for 10 minutes each, you do some silence, you listen to affirmations, you look at a vision board, you do exercise, you read and you scribe or journal. Well, this one is a sleep diary. So each morning I would write how I slept as part of my scribing the night before. And then I stopped doing that because I started kind of getting in that cycle of overanalyzing it. And like I talked about earlier in this episode, that's kind of one of the negatives, but it was good to track. Did this help? Did that help? The different supplements I took for sleep or the actions I took or, something like that. So again, CBT-I, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, works better than most any or all medications really, and it's more durable. Here's another quote just right from the Sleep Foundation. When these techniques are used together, meaning what we talked about, sleep restriction, stimulus control, some of the other stuff, used together as multi-component CBT-I, as many as 70 to 80% of patients with primary insomnia experience improvements, right? Includes less time to fall asleep, more time spent asleep, and waking up less during sleep. And these results are maintained over time, end quote. That's the thing about looking for a quick fix and the pills, and maybe short term you might need that if you just had a traumatic event or you're just having a bad short term thing. That's between you and your doctor. So it could help you get maybe you haven't slept already for 4 days and you're just dragging and you just need to be knocked out. But CBT-I is going to help fix the problem more long term, more naturally. It will, by getting better sleep, help you get sick less often. It actually will help you have a healthier weight, lower your risk for things like diabetes and heart disease, reduce your stress, improve your mood, think more clearly, get along better with people, make better decisions. And this is just a list from health.gov. Again, I'll share this link as well. But a quick summary, if you didn't listen to the first part of this episode and happen to jump to the 20-minute and 15-second episode or timestamp, is if you're not sleeping well, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBT-I, is a natural, no drugs way where you're going to change how you think about sleep, how you control the environment that you sleep in. You're going to not watch scary or gory movies. You're not going to be on your phone right up till you go to sleep. You're going to only use your bed for sleep or sex. You're going to not hang out in your bedroom if you're not tired during the day. If you're going to shut down those stimulus, an hour before bedtime. You'll read a book before you go to bed. Only go to bed when you're ready to sleep. If you're having trouble, that's where we got to look at sleep restriction, where if you're laying in bed for 8 hours, you're only sleeping 5. Go to bed 2.5 hours later and stay in the bed for 5.5 hours. When you start sleeping actually that whole time, then start adding half an hour. And try relaxation techniques. Learn some breathing treatments, breathing therapies, meditation, yoga. There's a whole bunch of relaxation techniques. I'll link to some of those as well. But sleep is critical. It is a vital thing. It helps us just be better humans, both for ourselves and those around us. And again, I'm so thankful that I found CBT-I. It changed my life. It changed those around me's life. Not sleeping is hard, but you can make it through there. Just like Viktor Frankl, find why you want to push through your insomnia, and CBT-I will help be the how you're going to do it. Thank you all for listening to the KEV Talks podcast. If this is your first visit, your first play, I appreciate you clicking on the logo and listen to this one, Got Sleep, episode 2. If you listen to the People Process Progress podcast, the previous name of the show, thanks so much for being here. Go back and listen to some of the great interviews. The last one I had was with Dr. Tracy Marks. A lot of anxiety, other mental health resources there. And as I mentioned on the last podcast, coming up, we got some great interviews. One with a good buddy of mine. We're going to talk about substance abuse and public safety. And going to talk with an author about mindfulness for first responders, for warriors, as she calls them. And so really excited for those podcasts. Really excited to see what the show does. Thank you so much out there. Remember, have a plan, stay informed, and get involved. For now, I've got to fly.